Hey everybody, what's going on in the beautiful world? It's been a while, I do apologize. I want to talk to you about something, and I think this is a really key, important thing to realize and recognize. What is consciousness and how does it operate? Okay, so during my own journey, one of the most beautiful pictures I've ever heard is this concept of consciousness. You can think of consciousness like being in a dark room, right? And even though everything and all the lights are down and you can't see anything, you're aware, you're there. You may not be able to see anything, right? But then so that is your consciousness. You know that you're there. You don't have to see anything, you don't have to touch anything, you don't have to feel anything, you don't have to see anything. But you're aware that you are there. That is consciousness. That is the I of the I am, right? And then you also have the next component, which is awareness. Awareness and consciousness aren't necessarily the same, but they operate together. So that's the am, the I am of awareness, right? And so the am is like being in this dark room, being aware that you're there and you're present and you're fully in that moment. That's very key, right? But then part of that is also having like a flashlight. So let's say you open your eyes and your eyes become like flashlights and you notice a chair. Well, now you're aware of that chair. So prior to that, you were just being conscious of it, right? And so you were just being conscious of you being there. You weren't conscious of any object outside of you. You were just it. That's who you were. You were simply just this being, right? Without any history, without any emotions, without any thoughts, without anything. You simply were just aware of being, if you were aware of anything at all. And that's it, right? But you don't need a flashlight. You don't need an emotion. You don't need any of that. Those are all just tools. That's very key to realize and recognize as well. So when you're trying to really grasp what consciousness is, because a lot of people within the work of Neville, Joseph Murphy, Emmett Fox, Florence Scovel Shinn, Esther Hicks, Law of Attraction communities, we use consciousness so flippantly, so abstractly, and it's not really a great term. It's like God. It's so out there, right? And it's so filled with baggage. And so I usually come from the background of science. And so, of course, I understand and approach consciousness from science and trying to really grasp what the scientific mechanisms are at play. But for the sake of this conversation, I want you to just basically think of consciousness as just aware of your being. Anything beyond that is being aware of something outside of you. Okay, so the I am or the am part, right, which is really what you're saying is this conscious being, this God, this source, this inner self, whatever words or synonyms that you want to use that you resonate with, is now this, okay? So when you say you are poor, then you're saying now this being who is all awareness, remember the awareness is like the flashlight, is now fully aware of being poor. Fully aware, right? This is where we get the theological concept of omniscience, all-knowing. You're going to know everything of that state. Even Neville Goddard says that, right? You will know it all, okay? And so that means you're going to act from it. You're going to feel from it. You're going to react from it. You're going to hear from it, right? And science, that's really just called activating your reticular activating system. It's kind of like waking up your eyes to say, I'm only aware of this. Waking up your ears to say, I'm only aware of that, right? And so what you do is you lock that state in. You lock the identity in to the point where you can't see, taste, touch, hear, or feel anything other than what you're claiming about yourself. Okay, apologies for the over noise here. But I did think it was really important with all of the background stuff as well to talk about this. And then there's the element of doubt. What happens when doubt shows up? What is doubt? Why is it there? How do we deal with it? So, one, you don't play with doubt. So in scripture, which was written as an esoteric document to the mind, kind of like a playbook for the mind, not as a historical document about people who actually lived, was really talking about when there's a verse that says, resist the devil and he shall flee, it's the word resist doesn't even actually say play with. It doesn't even say agree to. It doesn't even say acknowledge. In fact, the word resist means to double down, but double down on what? Not the doubt, obviously. So it really does mean to resist the devil means to double down on your state, on the state of being rich, on the state of being healthy, on this, like double down means I'm it. Like I become so mentally stubborn and so mentally engaged with this new state that all I hear is just that which is mirroring this new state. All I see is that which is actually mirroring back to me visually what I am now, right? But in the new state. And so, but also if you look at doubt not as something to fear, because a lot of people do, and I did early on in my journey, sometimes even now, is when something comes up, what you end up with is this idea of like, I've got to fight it, I've got to reverse it, I've got to do those things. And even that little verse, resist the devil, is like, you don't even acknowledge it, just don't play with it, don't respond to it. Why? Because if you were in the new state, you wouldn't have it. It wouldn't be there. It wouldn't be present with you, because the new state is always present with you, right? That's the consciousness. You are conscious now of this new state, whatever it is, whatever you desire. You want to be in love, you're in love now. And that's the present moment, okay? And you're always acting and reacting and responding from that state, okay? And so every action that you take is always from that new state. And you take that new state with you everywhere you go, everywhere. It doesn't matter, right? And so when you are grasping what doubt is doing, just call it a sacred flare. Like the flare gun that shoots up and says, hey, right, we're right here, right? That's the ego just coming in and saying, hey, there's some thoughts here, there's some emotions, there's some value systems here that were given to you by other people, because most of our doubts are just that, right? And then we just keep reinforcing them by living life a certain way that keeps reinforcing and making the ego feel safe, but makes the inner self more and more hidden, right? And hidden behind the ego. And so, there's this great scripture, conversation between Pilate, who is really just representative of the ego, and then Jesus. And there's a lot of discourse going on, right? A lot of conversation. And then in that, Jesus doesn't really spend a lot of time like ping-ponging back and forth with Pilate. He kind of just ignores him, right? And once in a while, he'll say a phrase here and there, but for the most part, that's what you do. You ignore the ego. You don't really play with it too much. And if you do, it's simply just to shape it. It's to shape it now in the way in which you want to be from the new state. There's a lot here. There's a lot of psychodynamics going on, but I wanted to jump on here and give you something new and fresh, and be on the lookout. I'll be doing more content, new content. If you're looking for, science-backed, neuroscience-backed, psychology-based, manifestation coaching, get in touch. I've payment plans and would love to help you. So get in touch.